What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the debut album by Danish band Aqua, and this album is called Aquarium, and it came out in the spring of 1997. Now, this album is particularly known for the large hit single Barbie Girl, which that's about the biggest song that they had in the United States, but across internationally, it hit #1 in every area with the exception of the United States. This album did pretty well internationally. It got to the seventh single. The United States only really preferred two of them. And I do kind of feel like this album, in my opinion, is a mixed bag, but I do respect the concept of what it did for Eurodance and just the overall prospect about it. This is another one. Like I reviewed Spice Girls a few days ago, but I would also have to say that Aqua is another one that was kind of like a staple of the 90s, especially for particular pop culture and this overall certain music culture throughout the late 90s and such. I feel like when you speak of like Spice Girls, another one to bring up pretty quickly is Aqua, especially amongst the females, just particularly pertaining to Barbie Girl and maybe Dr. Jones and like Lollipop Candyman or some of those. But this is kind of like a decent album here just because I look at the aspect of it, and the fun thing about it is just the fact that it covers such a wide girth of Eurodance music, and it's just the fact that this crested the United States when Eurodance was particularly more popular in the UK. I mean, it did start to cross over, but when you think of folks like Hadaway, whose song like "What Is Love" was like one of the few hit songs that he got, and there were other ones like La Bouche, who did like "Be My Lover," and they only got like two hit singles. So just some of that stuff from 94, 95, it was kind of starting to crest over, and it did reach 97, 98 and such. But looking back, this album is particularly lightweight just because out of seven singles, it was really clumsy in terms of its execution of how it connected with the United States. Now, internationally, it was a pretty massive album, and it collected quite a bit of success. The UK definitely liked it more. There's other charts. I don't know all the countries, but I know at least in Denmark and places like that, it charted pretty well. But Europe had seen more singles, but in the United States, we only really cared about Barbie Girl and then Lollipop Candyman. And I think, out of seven singles, that really says something. But I mean, Aqua didn't really stick around that long. Like the Spice Girls, I think they only dropped two albums. I want to say that they didn't even get to the third album. Maybe they did drop three albums, but for the most part, they were just a product of like the late 90s and just that kind of Eurodance culture, which was just really seen as like a parody of the 90s when you reflect on like 1997, 1998 and such. But it's to be respected just because I look after it. This album does have some gems on here, and it's just kind of a breath of fresh air just because it's very peppy. And these musicians, both the girl and the guy on this song, have a particular pep that just is kind of like affable, and just overall it just has a particularly breezy kind of bubblegum pop kind of feel towards it that just is very happy-go-lucky and kind of plucky and stuff. I would have to say is just, you don't like most of the time pop nowadays kind of has more of like a slant to it. It's not quite, I mean, this is just really kind of carefree. What's the word I'm looking for? But just kind of like it's strange how particularly carefree that this project kind of is. And I just look at the aspect behind it, just getting some bubblegum pop that this is really poppy. Songs like Barbie Girl, Dr. Jones, Roses Are Red, My Oh My. Just so many of these kind of have like that peppy kind of feel towards it. So this is, with me listening to dance floor groups like Blood on the Dance Floor and who are some other ones? Blood on the Dance Floor and like, LMFAO and just stuff like that. It's just odd hearing dance floor songs that are not about like liquor and twerking and that type of stuff. Just the concept of reflecting on what the dance floor was like back in 1996 and 1997. So it's just kind of, this is before EDM of like 2010, 2012, and this is also before like dance music really took over throughout the mid late 2000s. Before, I mean, Madonna was kind of doing this stuff, but this was so much more electro. But it's not even electro pop that this album really is. It's just Euro dance, which was a big trend of the 90s, and it's just odd to kind of get some of this stuff seen European dance music that's not EDM, because it's just kind of odd to have that spectrum. But I do like the concept of it. It's just very 90s, and there were seven singles. So we're going to go ahead and talk about some of these singles here. The first single is Roses Are Red, and this one's a very snappy kind of dance gem. It's definitely good bubblegum pop. This one probably has the quickest pace on here, where Barbie Girl, which is the larger song, has like a particular Barbie Girl, which is the more popular song, has a particularly basic kind of feel towards it. It's very kind of piano like and just almost calm compared to Roses Are Red. I just would have to say that Roses Are Red is pretty much one of the quicker songs from the singles that has just like the most rave kind of feeling, where this one gets the energy turned up. Now it's very kind of popish bubblegum pop in terms of how it turns things up, so it's not like it gets raunchy. And I mean it's adult, but it's kind of a parody of itself. Just the lyrics on this album, they're almost, I don't want to say laughable, but they're just kind of like the the lyrics into how some of the entendres kind of work is just kind of like it's just kind of like the wordplay just feels very 90s. I mean, it's just you see so much snappier wordplay out of today's times, and that type of stuff is just kind of, especially with songs like Barbie Girl, Dr. Jones, and Lollipop Candyman. I mean, just some of these just really feel dated in terms of, it's not like the lyrics are bad. I like the melodies on these songs, and they have really, some of these have really good productions, but it just kind of feels almost like a parody of the way things were back in 1997 and stuff. But it is a nice, snappy one. This is definitely one of the more up-tempo ones of the dance floor hits. My Oh My is the second single, and this is kind of an almost song for me. I like this one, but not wholesomely. I'm going to recommend it, but I'm just kind of on the fence about it. It kind of has like a real fancy kind of blue blood. My Oh My was a fancy blue blood kind of kings and queens type production on the song. I definitely like the concept of how that worked at the beginning, but the production choices on this song are particularly peculiar, especially in the verses where it kind of has this somber piano in there that I just didn't like the arrangements of how that kind of went. I did like most of this song, but I was just kind of more on the fence about it. It is a pretty bop-ish and kind of jivey kind of song, and I definitely like the chorus. It kind of competes with Barbie Girl and Lollipop Candyman. It's one of the better choruses on here, but it kind of, I just feel like the production arrangements for this one just kind of made it a little bit peculiar. And it's probably just more of a personal nitpick, but I didn't really like the somber pianos on the verses that much. But I do kind of feel like it is another dance bop, and it's just kind of a kind of lightly ambient, but just it kind of has like a decent pace towards it, but it's just kind of more of an ambient one compared to Roses Are Red and Barbie Girl and some of those. But I do mostly like this song, but I just can't quite convince myself wholesomely to give this song more of a try. I just need to get used to the production more. Um, the largest known song, Barbie Girl, is the third single. This is one that really anchored the project, hit #1 basically across the world. It's a pretty good staple. This is one that when you want to take it back to 97, 98, this is an easy song to play. It's a rave 90s hit. It was actually rather basic in the verses. I kind of feel like this is just a basic dance tune. I do feel like Roses Are Red is way snappier, but this one is such a central. I mean, this song probably got so many plays that most people probably just realize that they're going to hear this a lot of times when they went out back in 97, 98, 99 and stuff. It's just kind of, I mean, I look after it, I just feel like it's just very vanilla in terms of like the eurodance feel that it kind of has. This is one that, yeah, you can play this song for nostalgia purposes, but I definitely feel like if you truly want to make things 90s, it's good to look up other hits from this album. But the problem with being like a good DJ and stuff is just the fact that you have to play stuff that people don't remember, but at the same time is going to keep them going. Where I feel like there's just not many hits on this album that has like the rave uh instant kind of identification of Barbie Girl, but it's too bad because this is a fun album, but it just never got any other hits the size of this song. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword in that sense, but I would still like to make the attempt. But we'll talk about a song that I think could probably do that as we go along with these singles. But Dr. Jones is the fourth single. This didn't chart in the United States, but it is a pretty thumping, quick tempo song. It's definitely a good dance starter. Yeah, Dr. Jones is just a real thumping one. This has a real quick tempo. It's very similar to Roses Are Red. It keeps up with that song. It's actually a little bit more riveting than Barbie Girl. This one's a little bit more riveting than Barbie Girl and My Oh My, but it is kind of up there with Roses Are Red. And I definitely kind of feel like the thing about this song, Dr. Jones, is just kind of the awkward topic. I mean, some of these, like I said, with the lyrics kind of being questionable, at least kind of tame in terms of what happens. I kind of feel like just the concept of just like Dr. Jones, give me some of your doctor care, that type stuff. I kind of look after it like, I don't know. I just feel like the song topics on here, I kind of question not so much the concepts of them, but I kind of feel like some of these are just kind of paradoxical just because, I mean, Barbie Girl worked, the Lollipop Candyman worked, but I don't know. It feels like the topic variety, at least in terms of song topics, is not quite as hits as hard, quite as well as it needs to. Like I would almost wonder if they could have just had a song like, you know, Shake Your Ass or something like that. Just something that's just a little bit more basic, but just still for the dance club. I mean, a lot of these they try to come up with themes as far as like the concept of having the two vocalists, as far as trying to how to incur them and that type of stuff. And you'll notice that as it goes along, but this is kind of the thing. But it is a good song. I do recommend it. It's nice dance club pace. If you're not trying to pay attention as much to the topic and just more of like the dancing, then yeah, it's a good song. I'm really kind of getting intricate in this review, but the fifth single is Lollipop Candyman. The fifth single is Lollipop Candyman. This is probably my second favorite song on here apart from Barbie Girl. I feel like these two are the best ones. I kind of agree with what the United States thought of this album. I just feel like this is just a very obscure album. It's not to say it's bad, but just some of this is very left field and it's just kind of very unorthodox in terms of how this concept and approach kind of goes. But I do feel like Lollipop Candyman was a solitary one that worked pretty damn well. It's a nice mid dance and good follow up to Barbie Girl. I really like the melodies on this one. This one had pretty sharp pace. This one's pretty much like a 1-2 punch for Barbie Girl if you just don't know much. And for like DJs and stuff like that, folks who want to take it back to the 90s, maybe you have a big 90s gig or something, you want more songs besides Barbie Girl, this is kind of a good song to dig up. I definitely think this is a good song to dig up just in terms of taking things back to Eurodance, just to kind of remember things. I know, like, for the most part, it seems like most people probably wouldn't remember this song. Most people just probably think of Aqua as a one-hit wonder with just Barbie Girl, but I would have to say that this is a pretty solitary one. Definitely has I mean, the production is a little bit more, not quite as soothing as like Barbie Girl is, but I feel like this the concept of how it kind of went is just kind of an obscure song. I think it's just definitely one that probably doesn't even get played like a 16th or a 32nd of the time in terms of like the promotion. I don't know how many times in like a standard year like a rhythmic or pop radio station would play this song. And it did chart in the United States. It is a pretty decent one. So I would say I do like that one. It's probably one of my favorites on here. And then I'm just going to sum up the sixth and seventh single pretty quickly because I don't recommend those. Turn Back Time and Good Morning Sunshine were just kind of ones that took it away from the dance floor and were just kind of more down tempo. Like at least Turn Back Time was trying to be like a slow dance kind of song, but I wound up not liking the production in like the second verse and that type of stuff. It just kind of, I mean, maybe I could convince myself to like that song down the road, but for the time being, I don't even know if I could recommend that one. I just kind of feel like it just didn't really have the edge that I felt like was necessary for it. And it's the same thing with Good Morning Sunshine. There's just a number of songs on here. I feel like this group just did a really kind of not terrific job of trying to establish like hits apart from Barbie Girl. I feel like they definitely had the hits across internationally, but for some reason the United States just did not give them much of a chance to really get going beyond that. And it's just like most of these songs, like My Oh My, kind of just the approach was okay, but just didn't quite nail it enough. And Dr. Jones is just kind of an odd topic, and I don't know why Roses Are Red didn't chart. That was a really fantastic one. That one definitely should have. I just feel like 3 out of 5 of the dance floor singles just did not, or I feel like 2 out of 5 of the dance floor singles just did not quite have the edge. Even though I recommend them, I still kind of feel like in terms of like the proximity, I feel like the approach to how obscure and left field they kind of were kind of damaged them just in terms of just being able to come up with topics that would crest to international audiences. Like Europe picked onto it pretty quickly, but I just think they needed like another kind of affable and simplistic topic like Barbie Girl and Lollipop Candyman in some cases to really be able to do it. It just kind of felt like in terms they had the approach at least to be able to make solitary music, but I just think the context of how it was kind of packaged for international audiences, the translation of it just didn't quite go as like productively as it probably needed to. I mean, it's just me being kind of mechanical in terms of talking about it, but I could talk about this for probably another 15 minutes, but just to kind of say that's the thing about it. So, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and recommend the 6 songs out of 12 I recommend because basically there's 11 songs on here, but with like the deluxe edition, which Wikipedia says is the limited Christmas edition bonus tracks. The 12th song on here is Didn't I, which I don't recommend. So I'm not going to, it's actually 17 songs on the Spotify edition, which has Didn't I on there, but most of these are just remixes and different versions of like the singles. So I'm just gonna say out of 12 songs, including Didn't I, I'm gonna recommend the 6 songs I recommend, or 5.5. So they would be Roses Are Red, Lollipop Candyman, Barbie Girl, Calling You, which is an album cut, Dr. Jones, and the Almost song is My Oh My. So the only other song to really talk about of note apart from the 5 singles that I recommend would just be Calling You. And this one is very similar to Roses Are Red and Dr. Jones. This has a kind of nice quick tempo dance pep towards it. Just a nice dance bop in there. Gets you moving. It's just a nice one for that sort of situation. They needed way more songs like this. I feel like Be a Man and Turn Back Time were kind of awkward ones on here. Just didn't really like the approach of that. Heat of the Night was trying to be like a summery kind of Latin tinged Eurodance song, but I don't really know how that arrangement would kind of work that well. I mean, I kind of feel like they were kind of trapped in a niche with doing like this Eurodance music, and then to try to have like a Latin tinged version of Eurodance, I just don't see quite as easily as to how that kind of worked. I mean, it was good that they tried, but it just didn't really pull it off that well. And the other single which I didn't like was Good Morning Sunshine. And then Happy Boys and Girls was kind of a peppy song, kind of carried some of that energy, but I don't know if it was just the topic. It just didn't gel well enough with me to really recommend that one. It just kind of, I mean, a kind of decent problem about this album is just the topic concept. I really feel like I was saying, how this album just doesn't gel with international audiences quite as well. I feel like some of these topics on here just do not quite translate quite as well. And I just feel like Happy Boys and Girls was one of those where they have like the production value of being able to make some pep in here, but when the topics are just kind of offbeat and just not quite as concocted quite as well, and they don't have carry the kind of energy, I just felt like that was one that I just didn't agree with, like the context of the song. It's just kind of an odd one. So I mean, but it is a peppy project, so that's just kind of the thing. So I'm gonna give this album me liking 5.5 out of 12. I'm gonna give this album like a 5.25 out of 10. I feel like that's solid enough. I mean, the singles that I liked, like I do like 5 out of 7 of the singles, which Barbie Girl and Lollipop Candyman are probably the shining ones. Although I do like Roses Are Red quite a bit, and I do like Dr. Jones, and for the most part, beyond like the kind of odd topic. And My Oh My is a decent kind of almost song, decent single. I just have to get used to it more if I can. And then Calling You is a pretty solid album cut. But I just kind of feel like this album just kind of has awkward song topics, and just the approach for how it crests into international territory, at least trying to blend with some of that, just doesn't quite carry over quite as well. I mean, they speak English, they do have solitary melodies and singing and that type of stuff, and they can make you dance, and they have that pretty good down. But I just feel like some of these topics are just not like typical, like just ones that connect. They're just not topics that connect immediately. Like when you think of like Got Money by Lil Wayne, or like Akon's Locked Up or something like that. Just those kind of typical topics that kind of go along with it. Just it kind of feels like it's definitely got the pep down, but the concept of the pep just does not translate into like affable topics in terms of like what's just has a better like a congeniality. That is kind of the thing. So 5.25 out of 10. The social score, I'll go ahead and give like a 7.75 though, just because so many of these songs are dance ready and stuff. Definitely has a good vibe about it. I would say the social score would connect more if the songs connected more, but it's difficult not to label this group like a one-hit wonder, just because there were so many kind of odd and just obscure kind of formats to how this album kind of translated and stuff. That's just kind of the thing. So in terms of the future, like Aqua's been gone for a while, so I don't know what's been up with them. I don't know if they'll come back. They've kind of flirted with the idea of it, but I don't know if they will. But this is a decent project with some dance gems on here that you don't want to overlook, but you just have to deal with the fact that it's obscure.